Welcome to Mirrors into Windows, a podcast by Global Teaching Partners, an official Bridge USA designated organization. I'm Amy Corwin.
And I'm Danté Johnson. Together we dive into education from every angle, transforming reflections into opportunities and uncovering strategies that would help us look beyond the classroom walls.
Our goal is to connect educators from around the world, bringing you conversations, insights, and stories that will shift perspectives and ignite meaningful change. Because when mirrors become windows, the possibilities are endless.
Whether you're navigating life as an international teacher or searching for new ways to enhance your practice, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration, collaboration, and a richer understanding of the global classroom.
So Danté, if people are going to go on this listening journey with us, I guess we should let them know a little bit more about our organization, a little bit of our background.
Yeah, so Global Teaching Partners is an officially authorized U.S. Department of State J-1 Visa Exchange Visitors Program. Say that 10 times fast,
That's
right?
a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
So basically what we do is we facilitate the entire process, right? So starting with recruiting, then going to the vetting process, then we have the placement within various districts and schools, and then we offer that ongoing support during their time here. And we're talking about professionally credentialed, experienced educators here, like from around the world that's coming to the U.S. to teach. And as you can imagine, this is an intense application process.
It sounds pretty intense, doesn't it?
And so I like to think about the why, like why do teachers want to go through this process? And I know you've been through this cycle a few times. What was one of the big reasons of why teachers want to experience this?
Well, Danté, I know we'll talk a little bit more about our backgrounds later. I am indeed a former J-1 cultural exchange teacher myself, but you know, the Global Educator Program is just so enriching. It allows our international teachers to gain knowledge of the United States. They get to participate actively in kind of cross-cultural activities with U.S. schools and communities, and then they take that knowledge home. They go home, they share their increased knowledge, their experiences, and they inspire other educators in their home country. Generally, an experience like this really gives our educators a competitive edge in today's market. It's just such an asset to have worked in more than one country, to see multiple perspectives, to just find out how other people do it around the world.
Yeah, and that's a big one because when I interview teachers, one of the big highlights is the anticipation that they would show and showcase their culture with their new community in the U.S. So that's big.
Yeah, and it's not even just the educator that really benefits from a program like ours. Generally, it inspires U.S. citizens to kind of respect and appreciate and admire people from other countries and places, their diversity, their backgrounds. And you know what? Our students get an increased knowledge of the world, and they kind of work towards being more thoughtful and global citizens.
Yeah, because actually in reality, some of these students never get the opportunity to travel outside of their immediate community.
Yeah. So. Did you know that only approximately 45% of U.S. citizens have a passport? Like, that is less than half.
So I feel like that kind of creates the vision of Global Teaching Partners, right? So basically, we also are championing the global educators, right? So we're nurturing their academic life, their culture, their professional life. And here's a big one that I think that we don't really talk about as much, but even their social growth.
That was a big one for me.
That's huge. So basically all of this is going to broaden the impact of the international teaching through robust and collaborative partnerships. And this is going on throughout districts across the southeastern portion of the U.S. But realistically, we're not the only organization that's doing this, right?
We are not.
So however, there are supports that we're intentional about putting in place to make sure that we are giving that support to the educators. So can you name some of those supports that we have in place for them?
Yeah, well, I think that is really what sets us apart. How we support our educators really makes us experts in the field. We give professional support to social support, cultural support. We have a lot of structures in place to just make sure that our educators are successful in all aspects of the program. Even through the application process, we want to make sure we give timely and constructive feedback that kind of points the educator towards what it takes to be successful here in the U.S. We do offer professional development opportunities to educators while they're here on the program. Often they want to come and sharpen skills, grow their abilities. Yeah. And they just want to align with their U.S. counterparts, like figure out how that curriculum works and how to kind of get ahead in their schools and in their academic journey. One of the big areas we provide support is transitional support, such as housing assistance, guidance on kind of purchasing cars. And then we have a process where we utilize transitional advisors. They provide critical support in new districts in those early days, like just boots on the ground, how to get around, that sort of thing. Our educators are able to become a part of a strong network of global educators. They get unique access to social networking, and we do in-person cultural events. So they build communities right here in the U.S. That are comfortable to them, as well as building those new relationships with new people as well. Academically, we have success coaches. They support our educators by performing school visits, providing guidance on all aspects of teaching in the U.S. So you could say we don't really leave any stone unturned,
Absolutely
right?
not.
We walk closely with every educator as they embark on their journey and throughout their entire time on the program. It's not just a 1 year, 2 year thing. It's the whole time they are here. Because our motto here, we really believe if you are going to be a successful teacher, you are a supported one.
Absolutely.
And this will just really allow our educators to truly get the most out of their experience. Now that's a little bit about our organization, and so I also think it's very important that our listeners learn a little bit about us. So Danté, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah,
what brought
so
you here today.
Yeah, so I'm from the U.S. here, and I grew up around the world. My father was military, right? Okay. So we lived in Mississippi and Virginia. However, we also lived in England and in Italy.
So you've been out of the country.
Out of the country, across the pond, what they say, right?
Europe, yes.
And so I've seen a lot of different. I've been in a lot of different schools. Grew up in a lot of different communities, and seen a lot of different cultures. Came back here to the U.S. and went to college, and then got my teaching degree. And so I was teaching. Been teaching in North Carolina, taught in Virginia, taught in Maryland, lived in New York. So I have about 12 years of classroom experience where I was teaching, and then I stepped out of the classroom and I did about 3 years of leadership, school leadership.
So you've seen inside and outside of the
Absolutely.
classroom. Okay.
And so people ask me, why did you move around so much? What was it? And I was very intentional about the places in which I wanted to teach in or wanted to work. So I wanted to have experience in charter schools, private schools, public schools, inner city schools, Montessori schools. So
that's giving you a big perspective, right?
Exactly. And I felt like that would allow me to see different spaces and how people and children learn and teachers teach and just education abroad, right? So I left that and I came to Global. Been here for a little less than a year. And one of my passions, right, is just to build healthy, inclusive classroom culture, right, where we're looking at it from a lens of equity. Because moving around so much, I lean toward making sure that people feel included, right?
Which is a real 21st century skill, right?
Exactly. So, living in different spaces has allowed me to kind of see that. So that's something that I feel that I bring to Global, because that's what we look for, right? Helping international teachers feel welcomed and feel comfortable and supported in this new space. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah. What about you?
Good. Well, I mean, you seem like you have been all over the world as well. I am not originally from the United States. I am a transplant, if you will. I was born and raised in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Cool. Some people say Ireland, some people say the United Kingdom. I don't mind. I can be from all of those. But I am a former J1 cultural exchange teacher. That's what brought me to the United States. I came and completed the program now that we serve. So I taught 5 years in North Carolina, elementary school, fourth grade teacher. I had taught 5 years prior in Northern Ireland as well. So about 10 years in total in the classroom. I've actually worked now for Global for almost 6 years.
Wow.
For as long as almost this organization has been in existence. And so my role here has really been providing many of the aspects of the support that I outlined earlier. I really have experienced firsthand many of the highs and lows of being a cultural exchange teacher, the culture shock, the social adjustment, new curriculums, different school environment, just the overall steep learning curve of just embracing and doing something like this in your life and your career. And so nowadays, I would say my passion comes from just really seeing educators successful in their field. There were a few people in my journey just really championed me, championed my success, kept me going, didn't quit on me when it got tough and I was having trouble adjusting. And just they really helped me feel empowered to do the job well. And I think that's why I was successful. And so I want to do that now for everybody or people on the program. I want them to learn a lot. And then I want them to be able to lead others as well and impact and empower them. So I am really passionate about global education. I'm really passionate about encouraging educators to just keep making that positive change in students' lives because they really need it.
So I think about all of the experience that we both have collectively and all of the professional development that we have experienced and then all the articles and books that we have read. And it just makes me think of a very famous American journalist, and he has written over 10 books. His name is Sidney J. Harris. And he has a quote that I think really directly connects with what we're doing here and pretty much the name of our podcast. It says, "The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows," right? And we believe that this is the heart of the podcast. That's amazing. And we want educators to reflect, grow, and perhaps shift their perspectives with this.
Yeah, I mean, look at it like this. What are mirrors used for? Okay? Aren't they a symbol of self-reflection? How many times do you look in the mirror before you come to work to make sure that your outfit is what you want to wear for the day?
Yeah, plenty of times.
Did you change this morning? I mean, we want our educators to do that, right? We want them to stand and look and reflect in the mirror. It's essential, right? That essential kind of reflection where you kind of step back, you examine your own thoughts, your values, your actions, your beliefs as an educator. Because that's the process of really seeing yourself. It's in those moments that you really see your own biases, you see your own assumptions, your strengths and areas for growth. And if you're not careful, all of that stuff can come into the classroom in a negative way if you're not doing this reflective process. We've all had these moments where we need to ask ourselves the very tough questions, like, what's working here in the classroom? What's not working here? Or even just, am I teaching in a way that connects with all of my students, or am I unintentionally leaving someone behind? And as an international teacher, that's so easy to do because you are from a different place, and connecting with your students on that deep level can be really tricky sometimes. And if you overlook some of those kids, you're not reaching them, you're not getting to them, and they're not learning anything. So you gotta look at yourself and just really think about your practice.
Absolutely. So to be real, reflective process, the reflective process is uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable.
But that's where the growth happens,
of
right?
Course.
So not only do we need to identify the changes that need to be made, but it's also important for us to acknowledge and celebrate the successes. That's important also, right?
Which I feel like our organization does a really good job of, because sometimes we need to point it out in our educators for them to see the victory in what they are doing.
Absolutely. Because actually when the educator is not reflecting, it's pretty much just spinning, right? Spinning in this cycle. And I think that it's important to understand that that's where the mirrors come in, right? The mirrors have a place. The mirror is there for you to reflect and for you to see what's actually going on, right? What's actually happening. And that's when you can be more intentional about the changes you want to make.
Yeah, but you just can't stop there, okay? You can reflect and you can reflect and you can reflect, but to really, really grow, you've got to be able to move forward.
Absolutely.
Change practices, maybe do things another way, see things in another lens. And so that's what we're talking about when we talk about the windows. The windows are the things that are going to make you have that perspective shift. Because if you kind of think about it, like, reflection isn't the end of the whole story. It's just the beginning.
Right.
When we understand ourselves, understand our values, understand our core beliefs and what we do, we can shift our focus outward, okay? Using what we learn to sort of see the world from new perspectives.
And so I love the idea that education is more than just looking at our own experiences, right? So we're shifting more to the windows
where you can see through.
Exactly. And you can open it up, right, to different cultures, new ideas, ways of thinking that you might not have even encountered or even thought of on your own.
Which is the beautiful part of what we do, because you come from somewhere else and you bring that here.
Yeah.
By the nature of you being from a different country means you're already going to bring in the new experiences and the new perspectives.
Yeah.
Which someone in your school may never have thought about or seen already. And so it's really important, especially in today's classrooms. The United States is a melting pot of cultures. The diversity in classrooms is bigger and grander than ever before. And so students come from all types of backgrounds. They bring different ways of thinking. They bring different ways of learning. And so when we open those windows, we really see that there's more than one way to solve a problem.
Absolutely.
We're not stuck in the you've got to do it my way mentality. You can say, let's bring to the table 4 or 5 different options and see what works for us in different situations. And honestly, in this 21st century that we're living in, there is more than one way to understand the world. And that's what's really beautiful about it.
And that's why we believe that Global Teaching Partners is so powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's put that plug in there, right?
Yeah.
So, when students are exposed to different cultures, right, they develop empathy, right? A deeper understanding of the world.
Yeah, that global education where they realize your experience isn't the only experience. It's very easy for us when we live in our small area to think that our way is the only way. And that's what our organization aims to break down, those walls where there is other ways. It's not just one way.
Yeah.
And that lesson kind of transfers for students. But it also transfers to our teachers too, right? They can kind of benefit from this type of perspective shift, especially when you're bringing international colleagues into a work environment, or you've gone to teach overseas. Those windows really help us to see that the challenges we face aren't isolated.
Yeah.
We learn from each other, whether it's a new classroom strategy or a different cultural perspective. We can grow in ways that we just never could have if we just stayed in front of the mirror and only in the self-reflection process.
Look, we can talk about this all day.
We could talk about this all day.
But in summary, it helps us to grow, right? And we reflect, right, as individuals. And not only do we shift our focus outward, but we turn the mirrors into windows. And then we open up ourselves to new opportunities and new ways of thinking.
And look, that's what education is all about, really. And ultimately is the vision for this podcast. Personal growth can and will lead to broader perspectives. It's not just enough to kind of know yourself. You've got to take what you've learned about yourself. You've got to use it to see the world more clearly. And that way you'll really advance your career, your opportunities with that really open and broad mind. And so every time you use that mirror for reflection, but then you take what you've learned from that and you turn it into a window of opportunity. Remember that that's where the possibilities of where you'll go in this life are absolutely endless.
All right, so it's time for what we hope to be one of the favorite segments of this podcast, where we take a moment to ask candid questions to our educators. So this is where we get up close and personal with our amazing international teachers, asking fun, lighthearted, heartwarming questions that would give us a glimpse into unique cultural backgrounds and teaching journeys. So we're going to dive right in. So to make their teaching journey like truly special, Amy, what is the question for today?
Well, Danté, since we are introducing our podcast today for the first time, we thought it would be really fun to kind of ask something along the similar lines. So we asked our educators, if your teaching abroad experience were a movie, what would the title be and why?
Wow, okay.
So this is really interesting. We got back some very interesting responses, and it really helped me to just truly get a picture of how difficult this journey can be, but how rewarding it can be for some of our educators as well. So let me tell you about a couple of the responses we received. So one of our fourth year teachers on the program, she is originally from Jamaica. We asked her what her journey would look like if it was turned into a movie, and this is what she had to say. So she said, if my teaching experience were a movie, the title would be Lessons Across Borders. So I thought about that and I was like, where is this going to go? But she explained it this way. This title feels like the perfect way to capture my teaching journey because it reflects the resilience and perseverance that have shaped my life. She said, growing up in Kingston, Jamaica, she was surrounded by a culture that celebrated pushing through challenges and finding strength in the face of adversity. We often say, we lickle, but we talawa. Forgive me if I didn't say that correctly, meaning I may be small, but my power is mighty.
Nice.
What a strong phrase, right? That phrase has been a constant reminder of the inner strength I carry and the determination that's a part of my Jamaican identity. She went on to say, my parents, though not wealthy, worked tirelessly to make sure I had the opportunities to succeed. Their sacrifices taught me the value of hard work and perseverance, which carried me when I started college at just 16, because I already knew at that age I wanted to be a teacher. That first year was overwhelming. I didn't know what to expect, and I struggled and learned many lessons. But she says she leaned into those challenges, learned to adapt, and she kept pushing forward.
Nice.
When it came time to relocate here to the United States, the barriers seemed endless, but she said that her Jamaican roots reminded her to keep fighting. She earned her master's degree while also completing a graduate course in academically and gifted or AIG education. And she also, since moving here, has passed the AIG praxis as well.
Good job.
She said balancing it all wasn't easy, but she knew she had to keep going. Even after being recognized as Global Teacher of the Year, she's also presented at the district and state levels. She says she has had some challenges where she's had to face imposter syndrome. But each time, she says she reminds herself of her resilience and strength and from where she comes from. Those moments of doubt have only fueled her growth and deepened her connections with others. It has encouraged her to work tirelessly to empower students and teach the importance of having confidence and being resilient. She finished up by saying that this journey has been about so much more than teaching. It's all about resilience, discovery, and living out the lessons I learned growing up in Jamaica. That no matter the size of the challenge, she thinks and knows she has the power to persevere and make an impact.
That is awesome.
Hence the title, Lessons Across Borders.
I love it.
How powerful
That
is
is
that story,
powerful.
Danté? You know, it's just a really great reminder that this experience is life-changing for our
Absolutely.
educators. Life-changing. And, you know, we received one more that I thought was just really sweet.
Okay.
One of our second-year teachers from the Philippines told us that she would name her movie Sunflowers in the Snow. I smiled. I don't know. There's just something really nice
Yeah.
and warm about that title. But when we asked her why she would name it like this is what she said. And listen to this story. It's so sweet. She said, in the Philippines, we love to grow bright, cheerful flowers like sampaguita and sunflowers. Again, I hope I pronounced that correctly. And they're often given as tokens of love and appreciation. Back home, there is no snow, our fields are always green, and the sun is always shining. So when I experienced my first winter here, it felt strange to see everything covered in white and lifeless when it snowed. I forget that many of our teachers have never experienced snow, and they're like little kids. When a little kid is so excited about the snow, they get out there. So anyway, she said, one day I told my students about the fields of sunflowers near my home and how they reminded me of sunny days with my family. The next day, one of my students handed me a small packet of sunflower seeds and said, "So you can grow your own sunshine here." It was such a sweet, thoughtful gesture, and it made me realize how much kids understand things like homesickness. That's something our teachers generally go through, and what a wonderful and beautiful moment. So she said in the spring, she planted those seeds in the pots by her window, and every time they bloomed, I felt like a little piece of home was right there with me. When I showed my students pictures of the flowers, they clapped and cheered like we'd all grown them together. It was such a simple thing, but it made my first year here feel so much warmer, and was a symbol of how much I too had grown as an educator, and that there were many more bright days ahead as I continued on this journey. So this film or movie would be called Sunflowers in the Snow. You know what? I'm hoping somebody picks up these scripts and we get these movies made, because I think they would be blockbusters. How great. Thanks for listening to Mirrors into Windows. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. It helps us reach more educators just like you.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and any other social media platforms, or visit our website at globalteachingpartners.com. Until next time, I'm Danté Johnson.
And I'm Amy Corwin.